Hello everyone, welcome to Clickheads. I'm Eddie the Chump, and today we're going to be talking about cheaters, Riot's anti-cheat lead Arkham outlining how they're approaching the issue, and 5 features we think the game needs on or near release. Let's deal with Riot's cheating statement first. On the official Valorant blog, Riot developer Paul Arkham-Chamberlain, who is the anti-cheat lead, covered exactly how the team is planning to combat this bane of online FPS. I'll read some excerpts for you now. How do we think we can protect the game experience from cheats? It's fundamentally a defense in-depth approach. We first build the game to be as cheat resistant as we can, e.g. fog of war and server authoritative movement netcode. Next, we make the cost of developing cheats as prohibitive as possible, e.g. Vanguard and other anti-tamper measures. Finally, we detect, ban and remove cheaters from the game as efficiently as possible using Vanguard cheat detection, hardware bans, player reports, data analysis and machine learning research. Now, it's good to get a summary of all the methods they're going to be using, which includes several ways they've not spoken about before. Vanguard, server-side movement, netcode, etc. But this is the first time I can remember Riot talking about hardware bans. I could be wrong about that. If they have mentioned it, I must have missed it. But hardware bans are both good and bad. They're good in that anyone caught cheating would theoretically have to purchase an entirely new PC to play again, let alone use a VPN to create a new account, as for sure their IP would be blacklisted too. But they're bad in that against the most hardcore, most depraved, the saddest and most determined cheaters, they don't offer that much protection. In the cheating community, which is generally very tech savvy anyway, spoofing, say, your computer's MAC address is not that difficult. Would it be beyond the average cheater? Yes, possibly. So it is good to have that to deter a significant portion of the likely cheater base with a measure like that. But just like everything anti-cheat, it's not 100%. What I particularly like from this paragraph, though, is the data analysis and machine learning aspect of it. Machines may yet become our ruthless digital overlords, but before then, they will certainly help us with online gaming. Using these tools to leverage big data against cheaters is what might save the game in the long run. Hopefully Vanguard could become like the Borg from Star Trek, and that's a boomer reference if I've ever heard one, but the fantasy in my head is the machine learning becomes so efficient it can adapt to new threats with increasing speed the more it encounters them, as it correlates data from many different cheats and how they function. The reality is probably nowhere near as cool as that, and Riot has been tight-lipped about how these systems are designed, which makes sense. You don't want to show your detailed attack plans to the enemy before battle, unless it's a fake, dum-dum-dum. Anyway, crashing back to reality, Arkham went on to say, yes, cheats are still possible in Valorant. There are already some examples out in the wild, but this strategy makes those cheats much more difficult to develop and maintain. This in turn makes them more expensive to buy, which limits how many cheaters there are in the game. The smaller community of capable cheat developers also makes their cheats easier to keep track of and enables us to take other approaches, such as legal avenues, to keep them out of our ecosystem. I like the honesty. People are cheating in Valorant, and sadly they will continue to do so, but they hope that their approach will make cheat development much more expensive for both production and acquisition, which in turn will holistically reduce the number of people doing it. Essentially, make it as hard as possible and less people will be inclined to do so. Notice how they put the word maintain in bold. Just because a cheat works for a while, that doesn't mean it is safe to use forever. As Vanguard will be continually updated, cheats will also have to be continually worked on to be viable. I've never understood the mentality of someone who would cheat online in a game, so I guess I'm not the person to talk about their motivations, but surely the risk-reward reaches terminal velocity at some point and would become a losing proposition. That's the hope anyway. Join me in crossing your fingers on that one. The last paragraphs are about how Riot measure success. Essentially, their goal is to make the player base encounter as few cheaters as possible and be confident that when we play the game, it's going to be a fair result, win or lose. Their yardstick for success is literally the community's satisfaction with their work. Now, I know from experience that no anti-cheat is foolproof. I've had CSGO games on Faceit where people were cheating, even a few where they were banned mid-game, and that is regarded as far superior in comparison to, say, Valve's own VAC system. With cheats in Valorant, it really is a case of damage control. Riot admit they can't stop them all, but they can make it as hard as possible, and that's all the player base can reasonably expect. Let me know how you feel about this. Have you had any cheaters in your ranked games so far? Moving on, we thought it was time to give some constructive feedback in video form about mechanics in Valorant that are either notably absent or underdeveloped. I mean, we understand the game is in beta, we're not idiots, but I think this is a wish list of things we think the game really needs on or near release. 1. Proper deathmatch servers. I won't waste too much time talking about this because we've talked about it so much already, already, but in essence, bots never move like players do, and because of that, if you really want to improve your dueling skill, playing against other players in a respawn mode is desperately needed. We did get that supposed leak from the game files that TDM is apparently coming, but really the game needs free-for-all. This is how you would get the most reps in against human opponents, and Valorant is already quite a daunting prospect to newer players. How are you supposed to gain the skills to win gunfights if all you do is play the actual game and as soon as you die it's wait for the next round, Sage res put to one side. Plus, Valorant's main competition in the space it's looking to occupy is CSGO, and that has DM servers numbering in the thousands for players to use as practice tools. It's not really an if, but I think a when with this issue. I'm not a dev, I don't know how long making DM servers would take, but hopefully if it's not at release, they follow soon after because they are really needed. 2. Knife rounds. So because I come from CS and I've played Face It quite a lot, I'm very used to features that make the games much more fair, and one of those is a knife round to determine who gets to pick which side they play first. Have you ever queued in Valorant, got split, and just started praying that you got defense first? Of course you have. Everyone wants defense first because it's easier. With maps that are dominant on one side or another, you really can lose a game before you even get to play the other side because everyone just tilts at the first sign of trouble, especially in solo queue. Knife rounds just really make this exchange a little bit more in your control instead of just RNG. Player agency is really important to a competitive experience, and the less RNG there is, the better. It's a relatively simple thing, but winning knife round on split and being able to pick defense would feel really good instead of the lottery that it is right now. 3. Better overtimes. So you're in a super close game, you're down 11-12, and you clutch 1v3 to take the game into OT. Your reward? A one-off round with 5k to spend that, depending on what side you ended the game as, could be massively out of your favour just by the very nature of the map. Like I said previously, attack split is very difficult. The team in OT that gets to attack that map does have a serious disadvantage. Ask yourself, is that really fair? No, not really. It's not as bad as coin flip used to be in Overwatch, Volskaya coin flip defense, you give me nightmares to this day, but it's still not as fair or as compelling as it could be. In CS, at least on Face It, you play a further 6 rounds with each team taking turns on attack and defense, which is way more fair. It's like a mini version of the actual game, which in my opinion is way more preferable. Imagine clutching to go to OT only to have to struggle against how a map naturally plays in a best of one round. You don't have to imagine, that's what we have, and in my opinion, Valorant is such a good game, it deserves much better. Hopefully we get that. A lot of people on the dev team come from competitive backgrounds, so they must understand this. As far as I'm concerned, this is a bit of a no-brainer. 4. Map, pick, or veto. Look, I understand there is only 3 maps in Valorant right now, with a 4th being added at release, but I don't like the fact that I have no control over what maps I queue into. It's actually one of my least favourite things about Overwatch. If I could avoid 2CP forever, I would, and there's nothing wrong with that. For the players and teams that do like it, go ahead, knock yourself out. But I want that control over my gaming experience in my hands, thank you very much. CS lets you queue for only one map if you want, in ranked mode. So I'm very used to getting to play and learning one map at a time to get as close to mastery as is possible for such a boomer like myself. Face It has a map veto system whereby each team bans out maps they don't want to play until only one is left. Even the pro game of CS is entirely based around what maps teams are elite at. That's why the veto at that level is so important and can decide an entire series. Why leave something as impactful as that to pure chance? In my opinion, you shouldn't. But Eddie, if they did that, nobody would play Split over Bind or Haven. And why is that bad? You could even go counter meta and only play Split, learn it better than everyone else and dominate there. There are so many options. Maybe only queuing for one map is a bit much, but a veto? Come on, this makes so much sense. Well, Eddie, how do you decide who on each team of the 5 solo queues gets to cast the vote? Whoever is the highest rank. Next question. The counter arguments against the map veto just aren't as strong as those for one, at least in this player's opinion, even with a much more limited pool than say Counter-Strike has. 5. Agent pick and ban. Alright, I'll be honest. This isn't viable now because of the low number of agents. This is something for the future. When the game has, say, twice the amount of agents or more, a pick ban, especially at the pro level, would help with several different factors. The first is balance. If an agent comes out that breaks the game, which can happen even when the devs are super talented, switched on and motivated, a pick ban can protect competitive integrity from the ravages of something being grossly overpowered. Let's have a quick chat about Brigitte and Goat's comp from Overwatch. In my opinion, how that character released was so broken, no amount of nerfs could have saved the game from how she fundamentally changed it. That is why you saw Goat's comp, essentially a melee and cooldown based comp, dominate Overwatch for over a year. That should never have happened. The devs should have acted faster, but because they run their own esport and make all their own rules, nobody could do anything but play this obviously broken hero and composition. An FPS esport became about shields, melee and healing. There was virtually no shooting to be had outside of Zarya and Zen, which was frankly absurd, and the league suffered for it. I still can't believe it actually happened, or that they let it happen, and that whenever anyone raised the topic of, say, bans, they were dismissed out of hand. Now, Valorant is a different game to Overwatch. It relies on a more fundamental mechanical FPS skill set at its baseline, but there is obviously potential for agents to come out a bit too strong. Think of Raze, who I didn't think was that bad, but I can understand why players didn't like her kit on her release. In Pro 10-mans, she was instantly banned, and that tells me something. Usually the players are a little ahead of the devs, as they're naturally more sensitive to kinks in the power level of these kinds of things. They're not always right, but they are enough of the time to be relevant. Now, Riot have said that they're balancing for the top level down, which is great, but at a certain point, a pick ban could help the player base manage their own experience more efficiently. And that's a good segue to another reason why pick ban can be good. Instead of banning away from agents that might be troublesome, a pick ban allows you to ban into your own strengths. Say you're playing against a great Sage, but your team is built around Viper strats or a fast playstyle with a top tier Phoenix entry player. Well, you can ban so your playstyle is favoured. Sage slow basically nullifies fast strats, which is why the game currently plays like we're all Na'Vi from 2014, only pushing to the site in the last 30 seconds after the defense has expended all their utility. But what if you could tactically ban away from your opponent's strengths and into your own? Sounds fun, right? Yeah, it really could be. Again, not for now, but when the roster is more developed, I can see it being really fun and advantageous to the game. And that's about it for the moment. Let me know how you felt about all the topics I talked about today. I really hope you enjoyed the video and found the info useful. If you like the content on this channel, please hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you get notified when we upload. Until next time.